Protests against Erdogan's government increase as Kurdish protection units continue to confront the ISIS terrorist attacks. Syria's representative at the UN says the regimes of Turkey and Saudi Arabia are directly involved in providing terrorist organizations with chemical weapons. About 30 ISIS terrorists are killed in an Iraqi air bombardment to the south of Tikrit. Good afternoon, this is news in English from the Syrian television in Damascus. Protests against Erdogan's government and its role in supporting the ISIS terrorist organization against Syrian people continued in Turkey. About 31 Kurdish citizens were killed by Erdogan's security forces and more than 360 wounded during the demonstrations that were staged in various Turkish cities. Political analysts expect that the demonstration would increase in light of the Turkish stand which supports the ISIS terrorists financially and militarily. Syria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Dr. Bashar Al-Jaafari, reaffirmed Syria's support to the international orientation towards building an international community free of the use of threats of force. Addressing the First Committee of Disarmament and International Security in New York, Al-Jaafari said that Syria supports a world underpinned by the United Nations Charter's goals and principles that are based on justice, equality and peace among nations. He said Syria's cooperation with the United Nations and the OPCW was the reason behind the unprecedented achievement in the history of OPCW. Al-Jaafari said that some countries continue to protect the barbaric and inhumane practices of the ISIS, al-Nusra and other terrorist organizations, and they continue to arm these organizations with assorted weapons, including chemical weapons, which these organizations have used against the Syrian people and the Syrian Arab army more than once, stressing that the regimes of Turkey and Saudi Arabia are directly involved in providing these terrorist organizations with chemical agents used in these attacks. An ex-officer in the British intelligence affirmed that the United States and Britain intelligence have pushed certain Gulf states to finance and arm terrorist organizations, including the ISIS in Syria. More in the following.
British officer Charles Shepard said that the US and British intelligence were behind the dramatic events that stormed some states in the Middle East, such as Syria, Iraq and Libya. Meanwhile, a study recently published by the US Brookings Institute proposed forming what is called the new Syrian army with an American doctrine. The study said that the first stage of forming such an army should be carried out outside the Syrian territories through an intensive training program that lasts for 1 year. The study pointed out that the cost of such a training and arming amounts to $3 billion that should be paid by Gulf states, referring that the cost might reach $10 billion in case the U.S. Department participated in the program.
The British Daily Mail newspaper disclosed Western warnings issued against the possibility of using Ebola virus as a biological weapon by the ISIS members in mass killing operations carried out in some Western states. The paper quoted military experts as saying that it would not be difficult for ISIS members to spread the Ebola epidemic in Europe. Documents released by a Tunisian ISIS member disclosed facts about the intention of the terrorist organization to use epidemics as fatal weapons. Battles continued between members of the Kurdish protection units and the ISIS terrorists in Ain al-Arab Syrian city to the northeast of Aleppo. Sources in the city said that the terrorists sneaked into some neighborhoods to the north of the city, referring that the United States airstrikes did not stop them or hinder their advance. The ISIS terrorists are trying to enter the Syrian territories, capitalizing on the financial and military support they are receiving by the Erdogan's regime. Going to Iraq, where 30 terrorists that belong to ISIS terrorist organization were killed by air shelling that targeted their gatherings to the west of Tikrit. Meanwhile, forces of the Operations Command confronted in al-Ramadi governorate an attack by ISIS terrorists against Qasr al-Shamiyya to the north of the governorate, which led to the killing of 3 of them. A military source said that an Operations Command unit in Al-Anbar governorate supported by al-Bashar tribe fighters confronted a wide-scale attack by ISIS in addition to foiling another attack against Heat camp to the west of al-Ramadi, which led to the burning of a tank and an armored vehicle that belongs to the terrorist organization. In the same framework of the recent crimes committed by ISIS terrorists in Iraq, terrorists assassinated a cameraman who works for Sama, the Iraqi channel, along with his brother after breaking into their house to the north of the capital, Baghdad. The cameraman was killed because he rejected to work with them, as ISIS terrorists assassinated 9 people to the north of the country under the pretext of joining groups that are fighting them. With this, we come to the end of our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region, and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, www.syriaonline.sy. Now the latest in business and market news with Nariman, but after a short break.